Hey everybody, Matt here. Thanks for stopping by and welcome to another episode of Imagine Then Make. In this video, I want to upgrade my workbench from this Black & Decker Workmate with the plywood extension table to the Harbor Freight 60-inch hardwood workbench. So here's what it looks like when it's all assembled, but here's the first problem. This is what the box looks like, pretty mangled. So let's open it up and see if there's any damage. So I just opened up the box and I was actually pretty surprised. The box is pretty badly mangled, but right at the moment I don't see any damage. So let me get all the parts out so I can take a closer look. So here's the assembly instructions, and there's a picture of it when it's fully assembled. I was actually pretty surprised that I found very little damage. The only damage I saw was on this piece right here. This is a piece of MDF, and it's the bottom of one of the drawers, and it got all kind of mangled up. The interesting part is that I don't think it had anything to do with the box damage, but it's hard to really say. This bench is constructed of, I'll say, at least 50% hardwood, but there is some MDF components, like the draw bottoms I just talked about. There's 4 draws. That looks like a 1/2 inch or maybe 3/8 MDF. And there are some MDF side pieces for the draws. And it looks like the bottom shelf is a piece of MDF. And then I'm not quite sure what this big long piece is for, but this is MDF. The rest of it is hardwood. There is a piece of MDF here for the side of the draw on each one of the legs. And there's also a piece of hardwood and then a piece of MDF. And this looks like it is the middle section for the draws. So it looks like the draws are constructed of MDF, probably to save money, and the bottom shelf is MDF, but everything else looks like it's hardwood, including the handles for the draws and some pegs for the bench. Now let me take these draw bottoms away and I'll give you a closer look at the bench top, which was the thing I was most curious about when I bought this thing. So there's the bench top without anything leaning up against it. It measures just under 60 inches long. It's 59 3/4 inches long, so just under 5 feet, and it's 20 inches wide. The dog holes are 3/4 of an inch in diameter, and the top where the dog holes are is a little bit less than 3/4 of an inch thick. I measure it to be 11/16. Let me get a closer view and I'll show you what I mean. So here's the side of the bench, and if you just looked at the side, you might think the whole thing is that thick, but point in fact, it isn't, and you can see how deep the dog holes go. Let me turn the bench top around so you can get a different view. So here's what the underside of the bench top looks like. So you can see the top is actually framed with hardwood. So this portion here is just under 3/4 of an inch thick. I measure it to be 11/16. So the big question I have about this bench is, when the whole thing is assembled, how likely is it to rack either in this direction or in that direction when I'm either sawing a piece of wood or planing a piece of wood? That's the big burning question. So this is the first week of December in 2019. So we just went through the Thanksgiving holiday. So if anybody is wondering what encouraged me to buy this bench and to try it out, over the Thanksgiving weekend, they had this bench on sale for $115. So I figured at that price, I'll take a chance on it, and if it just doesn't work out for me, I'm very confident I can return it. All right, let's put this workbench together. So here's something kind of interesting I discovered when I read through the assembly instructions. Right on page number 3, it says that the tabletop thickness is 2.5 inches. Well, the outside frame for the tabletop is 2.5 inches, but the tabletop itself I measure as 11/16, just under 3/4 of an inch. So one of the concerns I have with this bench is that it might be a little bit too tall for my height. So before I started assembling the bench, first thing I did was turn one of the leg assemblies upside down, so this is the foot, to see how the foot was attached. And as you can see, there's 4 Phillips head wood screws that hold the foot onto the leg assembly, and that it's not glued or joint, there's no joinery at all. It's just a flat butt joint. That's actually good news for me, because if it turns out I do need to shorten the bench, I can just take off the feet, slice the legs, and reattach the feet, and that'll effectively lower the height of the bench. Alright, step 1 has been completed. I've got the cross brace bolted on to the 2 leg assemblies. Let me turn the legs around because I want to point something out to you real quick. Alright, so I just turned the whole thing around, and I wanted to point out that there's a sticker with the serial number for the workbench on the back of this cross brace. So if you didn't want this sticker to show up in the front of your workbench, which I do not, make sure you put this cross brace at the back of your workbench. And you can see the other cross brace right here does not have a sticker. And lastly, just so you know which side is front and which side is back, they do put a sticker on the leg assembly. That's how you know which is front and which is back. Alright, I've got the bottom shelf on, which is the second step, and you can see I've got the additional cross brace in place. The assembly instructions suggest that you have an assistant or a helper to help keep the shelf horizontal when you're installing the cross brace, but I don't have a helper, so I decided to just turn the legs on its side, slide the shelf in this way, and then put the top cross brace down this way, and then run the bolts in from the side. It took a little finagling to get the barrel nuts to line up and so on, but with a little bit of patience, I was able to do it. So this is what it looks like so far when the workbench is standing upright. So at this point, it's pretty stable. It's light, I can pick it up, but it doesn't feel like it racks much in either direction, so that's good news. So the next step is to lay the tabletop upside down on the floor or a flat surface. I put down some old towels just to protect the underside. And I'm going to install this piece right here. And there is a sticker that says front, and there's a sticker which you can't see on the underside of the tabletop that says front. There's a couple of dowels for alignment pins, and they go into holes right here. So it's a little tricky to get it lined up. Okay, so there it is. And then you use these small wood screws to secure this to the tabletop. Now the instructions say that you should drill a pilot hole, but I just tried a screw and it went in no trouble without a pilot hole. Of course, if you don't have a power drill, you could use a manual screwdriver and just take a little bit more effort. I'm not over tightening because I don't want to split anything. But the points on these screws are very sharp, so they don't seem to have any trouble biting into the underside of the tabletop. I also don't want to over tighten because I don't want to strip the hole. Okay, that's in pretty well. Alright, so I've completed the next step, which was to take the legs with the bottom shelf, turn it upside down and stick it on the underside of the tabletop, and then use 3 wood screws, 3 on this side and 3 on this side, to secure the leg assembly to the underside of the tabletop. Let me zoom in with a different camera view and I'll give you a couple more details. So here are those 3 screws that hold the leg assembly onto the underside of the tabletop. So here's the top of the leg, and this is the support that's built into the tabletop, and these 2 pieces are flush. So here's the top part of the leg, again, sitting on the tabletop, and you can see the top part of the leg is not quite flush with the frame of the table. So I got the next step completed, and that was to install this little support member under here. This is MDF. So it's not all that strong, and it's screwing into some MDF for the draw slides. So you can't really see the screws, but there's 2 right there. There's 2 that go in from the end that way. These 2 go in straight, and then 2 from the other end go in over here. You definitely do not want to over tighten these because you'll strip the holes. I just used a manual screwdriver, as you see right there. So I've got the next step completed, and that was just to install the vise. It went in very, very easily. Seems to work pretty smoothly, and it allows me to tighten it up without any issues. And it opens fairly wide. We got one center screw and 2 guide rods. So I got the next step accomplished, which was just to attach the handles to the draw fronts using a Phillips screwdriver. So I got the first draw put together, and it went together very easily. Just attach the 2 sides to the draw front using 2 wood screws on this side and 2 wood screws on that side. Since I'm screwing into the end grain, there was no pilot hole needed. Was able to do it very easily with just a regular manual screwdriver. With the 2 sides attached to the draw front, I went ahead and slid the bottom in and then positioned the back piece so that the top surface of the back would be flush with the top surface of the side, and also here. So flush here and here. And just for fun, I took one of the pegs that come with the bench and placed it in a dog hole. It fits very loosely. Push the draw up against it, so when I was tightening these 2 screws, I could push against it with my screwdriver and not have the draw slide off the bench. So already I'm using the workbench as a kind of assembly table. So here's a shot of the groove that the bottom of the draw slides into. So I have all 4 draws basically assembled. What I have left to do is put some screws through the bottom of the draw and into the back section to give the bottom of the draw a little bit more support. So here's the fully assembled workbench. First impressions, I'm pretty happy with this. It's going to be nice to use a flat hardwood workbench top. I've never really had that before. It's also going to be nice to use this tail vise along with the various dog holes that are scattered around the bench. It's going to be kind of fun to see how I can best utilize those. The bench does come with 4 heavy steel dogs and also comes with 4 hardwood pegs. And you can see they go in and out of the holes without any issues. I would say the weakest part of the bench, first impression, are these draws. Now they all fit and they all slide in and out and they don't pull out and fall on the floor. But they're just not that well built. And at this point I'm not sure I would take the time to redo them. Maybe. I don't know. And actually, to tell you the truth, when I first bought this bench, I thought I would not even bother installing the draws. But I wanted to do it here just to show you that they do go together. The last bit that I'm going to be interested to see how it works out for me is how stable the bench is. Now, if I push on it like this, I can get it to move. And I think you can see that on camera. And certainly if I push on it this way, the bench is light enough so I can pick it right off of its feet. And I can pick up the bench and move it around. So it's not a terribly heavy bench, but it's better than what I had. So I think it's a step up for me. I'll just have to use it for a while and see how it goes.